When you see this day and age, could you imagine if Kiss had started off today, how different things would be?
We'd be fucked. I mean, in plain English, because the music industry as it exists today is not even an industry. It's just shambles. And now artists are in a position to have to take what the public, so to speak, is willing to give them. In other words, with this onset of file sharing. Well, file sharing is just a fancy way of saying stealing. You can't share what you don't own. The idea that somebody is taking songs or music off the internet and taking it for free and calling it file sharing is like me saying transportation borrowing, and I steal your car.
Is it though? Because if you steal my car, I don't have a car anymore. But if you walk up to my car, make a copy of it, and drive it off, and I paid for the car, but you didn't.
It doesn't work like that. And when people create art with the hope of being not only accepted, but also being rewarded so that they can pay their rent and send their kids to school and things like that, and that doesn't happen, that's what stealing does. But the person who steals on the internet somehow doesn't feel the same as going into a store and stealing a cassette, which don't even exist anymore. But if you go into a store, if you go into Barnes and Noble or someplace and steal a book, that's blatantly and very clearly illegal. Downloading something somehow skirts the ethical and moral question of taking something that doesn't belong to you and not paying the person for it. Look, for me, it's a question more about morality in my case. It's not going to change my life any, but it sure bothers me that somebody is taking what they don't own, and it bothers me that somebody who's trying to succeed now and starting off doesn't have a chance in hell, more than likely, of ever getting that pot of gold, But they get the pot of gold in a different way. They get it through live performances. They're not getting it through album sales. Yeah, but that shouldn't be dictated to by the circumstances. That should be a choice.
Right.
The idea, you're still getting it. Well, who are you to decide where I get my money? Well, you're still getting it over there. But since when do you have jurisdiction over my revenue? So
I completely see your point, and I agree with you in a lot of ways. But I think that the reality of the times we're living in, like the digital world that we're living in, property is just it's a weird term when you talk about like digital property, like digital properties, things being downloaded.
So that's true, and that's a problem. But it doesn't change the truth, and the truth is that what you don't own, you can't take for free. You can, but it's wrong. It's morally wrong. It's ethically wrong, and it hurts people.
When the whole Napster controversy was coming out, and Lars Ulrich was the public whipping boy. When he came out, the Lars Ulrich from Metallica came out, and he was, saying, "Hey, you guys are stealing. We're going to take you to court. This is all theft." The backlash was tremendous. I mean, he was thought of as persona non grata. I mean, people went after that guy with a vengeance. A lot of artists sat back and waited to see how the dust settled on that.
Well, a lot of artists are wondering where their royalties are now. You can't put milk back in a bottle, spilled milk, and unfortunately, things transpired that there's really no getting around at this point. So, was Lars out of line? No, he was just saying, "I should be paid." It has nothing to do with whether he's wealthy or not. Who are you to dictate that he has enough?
I agree with you, but I think the way people were looking at it that didn't have a vested interest in it, the way they were looking at it is it's very obvious that the reality of the world that we're living in is changing radically as far as access to information, and songs have become information. Once they became digitized, they became ones and zeros.
They're art.
I agree. I'm not diminishing it in any way, shape, or form, but that art becomes information when it becomes ones and zeros. And once ones and zeros go online, they go online. I mean, it's almost impossible to stem the tide. And when you see a guy like Lars Ulrich stepping out there in the early days, when people maybe thought that there was a way to put a stop to this, when people didn't Napster was like the first thing. People didn't really understand BitTorrent. They didn't understand a lot of the other possibilities when it comes to downloading and sharing media. But now it seems inevitable. Is there a way to sort of meet in the middle? Like, I've always had this attitude where if someone sends me something or, someone sends me a YouTube link to a song, if I like it, I immediately buy the album. Immediately. I go to iTunes, I buy it right then and there. Even if I'm not planning on listening to it right then, I do it out of respect for the artist.
If there's a song that I'm curious to hear that I haven't heard in a long time, I buy it.
But what if someone sends you a YouTube clip? Is that okay? Give me the shitty quality. You're listening to it on an iPhone or on a laptop or something like that?
Look, there's a can of worms open here, and I really don't know what the answer is, but I do know that technology does not take the place of morality. And,
I'm not arguing you there. I'm saying, is it possible to incorporate the both of them?
Well, you were saying, is it possible to meet in the middle? Mm-hmm. And I would say, why do I have to meet you in the middle? Why do I have to compromise because of circumstance? You should respect my integrity, and you should respect my art, instead of me going, all right, well, you got me, so I'll take 50 cents on the dollar instead of you giving me the dollar. Wrong. It's wrong.
I see what you're saying, but like if someone sends you a link and says, hey, Paul, there's this fantastic band, you got to listen to this, and it's a YouTube link, do you just not click it?
No, I'll certainly watch it.
How is that different than like listening to the radio? I mean, a lot of people found out about you guys from listening to a song on the radio, and then they went out and bought it. Is it the immediate access as opposed to something being broadcasted on the terms of the radio provider?
I'm not sure. I would say that whenever money is changing hands, the artist should be a part of that. So if commercials are being showed on YouTube and revenue is being, if there's a revenue stream, then the artist should be sharing in that. It's an interesting question, because if I saw a band on television, hopefully I would see somebody and go, gee, I want to go buy their album. And I would go buy their album. So it's a selling tool. But whenever money is generated, either firsthand or secondhand, and there's an artist involved, the artist should be compensated.
Unquestionably. But do you feel like there's a difference between someone who's selling like pirate copies? Like, I used to always feel real uncomfortable with that when I'd be in New York, and they would sell these pirate copies of VHS tapes. You remember those? Mm-hmm. Or even CDs. When they first figured out CD burners, people would sell like pirate copies of CDs.
Yeah, and I go, boy, is that wrong.
Yeah, that's wrong.
That's
100%.
totally wrong.
That's someone profiting, though, right?
Well, sure. Well, isn't YouTube profiting?
Yeah, maybe they are. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they are. But file sharing, they're not, right?
Well, file sharing, that we go back to that. People sharing artistic material, sharing anything that should be paid for under some, technical guise or jargon is just wrong.
Is there a way, though, to reconcile with the times? I mean, it's not going to change. File sharing is going to exist.
Was it Tom York and his band? Didn't they do an album where they offered it on the internet and said just pay what you would like for it? Well, they got nothing.
Doesn't Radiohead do that?
Yeah, it was Radiohead.
Yeah,
so they did it. You know how much they got? Nothing.
Didn't they get anything? I thought they made some money off of that. Find out.
I'll look.
Yeah, look and see what it averaged per album.
That's a total hippie move, right? Pay what you want, man.
It's a total, total stupid move.
I used to go to this.
I don't think they'll do that again.
You don't think so?
No.
I'll see.
Most
if they get high enough, they might.
Yeah, most of the time, the guy who wants to share the most has the least to share.
It's true. That is so true. That's very true. I used to work out at this yoga studio, and it was a super hippie yoga place, and they used to have a basket. You just pay whatever you want. And I watched ladies pull up in their Range Rover, work out, and not put nothing in that basket. It used to drive me crazy. It used to drive me fucking crazy. I'm like, you just pulled up in a Range Rover, you walked in, you did your yoga class, and you just left.
See, but I come from a different point of view. Well, I say to people, as far as charities or anything else, you don't give until it hurts. You give until it feels good. You know what you know what's in your pocket, and you know what's in your bank account, and that's how you should give. You should give knowing what you can give, as opposed to the idea that you give grudgingly.
I agree 100%. But do you see a possible point of view, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, you see a possible point of view for a young, poor kid who doesn't have any money, who's a huge Kiss fan, who just, wants to be able to listen to your music and just can't afford it, can't afford to buy it, and so he downloads a copy? Is he stealing?
Sure, of course he's stealing.
But what if
circumstances don't change morality. Circumstances don't change what's ethically right and wrong. If there was no internet, would it be okay because he really loves Kiss to go into a record store back then and steal a record? Hell no.
I agree, but isn't it different where it's a physical copy that someone had to actually print up? I mean, obviously your art created, it took a long time and a lot of effort and work and creativity to put together.
Does it really matter if it's on vinyl or if it's accessed through a computer?
The only difference is that if someone's accessing it to a computer, I could send you a copy of something and it just takes 5 seconds. I say, oh, here, you have a copy of this.
So what?
But it doesn't, nobody loses. You know
of
what I'm saying?
course. Of course we do.
We do if you were actually going to buy it. If you're going to buy it, I'm like, Paul, save your millions. I'm going to give you this copy for free. Well, then maybe. But if you weren't going to buy it anyway and someone just gives it to you, is it I mean, that's one of the points of view that people have today is that
if you weren't going to, if I wasn't going to buy a particular album, we're going back to records or cassettes, and you gave it to me, you already paid for it.
Right.
So
absolutely.
So if you pay for something and then give it to me, okay, maybe there's a point there, but the idea that you took something for free and gave it to me, no.
Well, if I took something and I paid for it and made a copy of it, though.
Perhaps if it was one. We're splitting hairs.
We're splitting hairs. But I completely respect your opinion, and I completely respect your point of view.
And mind you, it doesn't change my life one bit.
Right.
I think it's ethically and morally wrong, but my concern more is for somebody who's up and coming, or somebody who says, I'm just doing this for the art of it. Well, that's okay. You don't need money. Money may not matter to you until you need money. I've known people who said, I'm just doing this because I love doing it, and money's not important. Well, that's because your bills are still paid. When the bills stop being paid, money's going to be real important.
Yeah.